the ability to have somebody who is kind of epitomizes what you think your country stands for has always been a major ambition.
I think there were not many people who understood just how broad his interests were and how supportive he was of an astonishingly wide range of organisation.
It was meant to be a simple family picnic, something quiet, relaxed, and low-key. Just the royals gathered on the Balmoral estate, away from the cameras, away from the headlines, and far from the weight of duty. There were no uniforms or press secretaries moving around. Just picnic blankets laid out on the grass, baskets filled with homemade pastries and cold sandwiches, and a quiet breeze moving its way through the trees. They were there for one reason only: to be a family. So it was the kind of day where everyone breathed a little easier. The children ran barefoot across the lawn, chasing each other between the trees. The adults sipped from paper cups and talked about everything except the crown. It was not about roles or rank. It was about cousins laughing, old stories being retold, and people enjoying the rare freedom to just be themselves, even if only for an afternoon. But by the end of the day, everything had changed. The happy atmosphere that was spreading everywhere had faded. Smiles turned into quiet looks. And somewhere between the edge of the picnic blankets and the nearby garden path, a quiet statement started to change the atmosphere. It was not loud, it was not obvious, but it was enough to shift the air. So, what exactly was said? Let's find out. And at the center of it all was Princess Charlotte and Queen Camilla. Charlotte, the bright 9-year-old daughter of Prince William, has always carried herself with a quiet strength. Those close to her often say she has inherited her father's calm and her mother's grace.
Princess Charlotte Elizabeth Diana was born in May of 2015, and as the second child and only daughter of Prince William and Kate Middleton, she is currently fourth in line to the throne.
And at times, when she looks at you, there's a striking resemblance to Princess Diana. Thoughtful, poised, with eyes that seem to see everything. That night, Charlotte was not a princess. She was not the future of the monarchy. She was just a little girl in socks and a cardigan, sitting on the floor with her brothers and cousins, laughing as they played chess and sipped on warm cocoa. She was happy. Safe. Until one comment changed everything. It began with a look. While the game was going on, Camilla entered the tent just a few minutes earlier. She was not wearing a crown, but her presence always carried a weight. She smiled politely, nodded toward the adults, and let her eyes scan the room until her eyes landed on Charlotte. The child was sitting with her legs crossed on the floor and a half-finished cocoa next to her, cards in her hand, and a soft laugh on her lips. This sitting position was something that Camilla did not approve of. She walked over, her footsteps light on the blanket that was laid over the grass. George looked up briefly, and Savannah looked toward her too, but neither of them said a word. Camilla's voice was calm, almost kind, but the words she said left the air heavy. "That's not how a future queen behaves," she remarked. Charlotte looked up, confused. "We're just playing a game," she replied softly, unsure what she'd done wrong. Camilla's smile didn't change. "Lady should always sit properly, especially one who will be watched her entire life." Then came the part that changed everything. "It's sweet," Camilla added, her voice still pleasant, "how your mother lets you be so casual, just like Diana was with her children, and we all saw how that turned out. One's a prince, the other's an estranged memoir." Charlotte blinked. "But one day," Camilla continued, eyes fixed on her, "you'll understand. The world doesn't care if you're having fun. It only cares how you look doing it." At this point, George looked up from his seat. He did not speak. He did not react, although those words hurt him deeply, judging by how his face hardened. Charlotte shifted uncomfortably, sitting up straighter, her cocoa untouched now. She reached for her cards again, trying to go back to the game, but Camilla wasn't done. "Your mother means well," Camilla said, her voice still soft. "But sometimes she forgets. She's not the queen. I am. And the way she is training you is just a disaster waiting to happen." As soon as those words were released, silence filled the room. It was not the casual kind. It was that kind of silence that drops suddenly like glass breaking somewhere off in the distance. Charlotte blinked. Then, with her voice barely above a whisper, she asked, "But what did I do wrong? Or what did my mum do wrong?" Camilla tilted her head. Her tone did not change, but her words did. "Of course you don't know. That's the problem. This system, this family, fills your head with the idea that you're special." She looked her straight in the eyes now. No softness, no warmth. "But you're not. You're just a princess who will be married off one day. That's all." The moment the words left her lips, Camilla turned and walked out of the tent. No hesitation, no second glance. She crossed the lawn quickly, her expression calm, almost light, as if nothing had happened at all. Just steps away, King Charles stood quietly, eyes on the clouds, unaware of the storm that had just passed inside the tent. Camilla joined him like it was any other afternoon, smiling softly, adjusting her dress, speaking low enough that no one could hear. But back in the tent, the silence she left behind said everything. There had been no shouting, no scene, just words that hit harder than either. Words meant to remind someone of their place, even if that someone was only 9 years old. Charlotte did not cry, not right away, but she stood slowly, holding her cards to her chest, her shoulders stiff, and she walked across the room, to one person she trusted without question. Not to Kate, not to William, but to Anne. And what Anne did next changed everything. Stay tuned. Princess Anne was known in the palace as the Iron Daughter, the one who didn't play politics, the one who didn't chase headlines but always showed up. She didn't fuss. But when it came to the children in the royal family, she didn't play games either. Charlotte walked straight to her, not crying but close to. Her face was already pale at this moment. She did not say much. She did not have to. Her hand reached up and grabbed Anne's, with her small fingers curling tightly around hers. Anne looked down and saw the change immediately. The flushed cheeks, the too quick blinking, the forced stillness that always comes before tears. She knelt, steady and calm, and asked quietly, "What happened, love?" That's when Charlotte's lower lip began to tremble. She said, "I wasn't special," she whispered. "That my mum is raising me to end up like an estranged prince, and that I would just be married off one day to an outsider." Anne blinked, then slowly asked, "Who said that?" Charlotte's eyes shifted toward the edge of the tent. Then, without saying a word, she raised her hand and pointed, right at Camilla. She did not need to say the name. Anne already understood. For a long second, Anne did not move. Her eyes followed Charlotte's hand. Her face stayed composed, but the change in her posture said everything. Shoulders squared, chin lifted. Her hands slowly clenched at her sides. Because this was not the first time. At the Queen's funeral, Camilla had said something sharp, directed at Charlotte. Everyone had heard it, but no one wanted a scene. So it slid, forgotten in public. But not by Anne. But not today. Not at a point where the family just wanted to have a good time. Anne rose fully now, calm but coiled with control, and with a voice just low enough to stay private but sharp enough to carry. She said, "No child in this family will be spoken to like that. Not while I'm still breathing." Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a knife. Camilla froze. Anne took Charlotte by the shoulders and gently knelt to her level. She tucked a strand of hair behind Charlotte's ear and whispered something no one else could hear. Whatever it was, it made Charlotte smile, just barely. Anne stood, turned to Camilla, and this time her voice was like steel. "We have seen what happens when little girls in this family are made to feel small. I would not let that happen again." There was nothing more to say. Anne took Charlotte's hand and walked her over to Kate. No drama, no raised voices, but everything had changed. As Charlotte finished speaking, Anne took her hand and nodded. There was no panic, just a quiet decision. She turned and walked with Charlotte calmly back across the lawn toward Kate, who had been seated beneath a tree, watching the children from a short distance. Kate stood the moment she saw them. Anne did not wait for questions. She leaned in, lowered her voice, and told her everything that had happened. While she was talking, Kate did not interrupt. She quickly spread her arm instinctively for her daughter, pulling her in, holding her close. Charlotte wrapped both arms around her mother's waist and didn't let go. Anne placed a steady hand on Charlotte's back, just for a moment. Then she stepped back. There was nothing else to explain. Anne placed a steady hand on Charlotte's back, then stepped away. There was nothing else to explain. Without another word, she turned and walked toward the tent, toward the people still pretending nothing had happened. Just before she reached it, she paused. Her hand went to her cheek. She wiped away the tears that were running down her cheeks and kept walking. But what Anne did next changed the entire monarchy. Curious to find out what she did next? Don't go anywhere. As soon as Anne left Charlotte and her mother, she did not sit down. She didn't hesitate. She walked straight toward her brother. King Charles stood near the rose garden, hands glued behind his back, with Camilla just beside him, speaking quietly. Anne did not wait for them to finish. "Charles," she said, firm and direct. Both turned. Camilla's smile died off. "We need to speak," Anne continued. "Now." Before anyone could respond, Anne turned to one of the nearby attendants. "Get me William," she said, and the instruction was followed without question. A few minutes later, William joined them. As quickly, his eyes were fixed on Anne's face. One look at her, and he knew something was wrong. Anne did not speak in front of Camilla. Not yet. Instead, she led Charles and William several steps away. No raised voices, no public drama, just three senior royals in a tight circle, standing on grass that suddenly felt colder than it had a moment ago. And for the first time that day, Anne broke the silence. She told them everything. What Camilla had said, how Charlotte had responded, and why this time it wouldn't and couldn't be ignored. King Charles did not say a word until Anne had finished telling him everything. William stood silent beside them, the tension in his jaw obvious, waiting. Charles looked at Anne, then at William, then back at Anne. And finally, he spoke. Camilla was not trying to be cruel. She was trying to teach her something. That's all. Anne narrowed her eyes. Teach her what? That she's worthless? That she would end up married off to an outsider like some chess piece? Anne said, in anger. She's being prepared for a life under pressure, Charles replied calmly. It's not always gentle. You, of all people, should understand that. Anne stared at him in shock. That wasn't pressure, she said coldly. That was humiliation. She's 9, Charles. Charles exhaled, long. I'm not saying I agree with the tone, he admitted, but the message is clear. Camilla was only trying to teach self-awareness and discipline, and that's part of who we are. It's part of what your mother expected from all of us. From you, from me, from William. And now from Charlotte. At this point, William's fists were clenched at his sides, but he still hadn't spoken. His eyes were locked straight ahead, fixed on nothing, on everything. Anne took a step closer. "I'll say it again," she said, quietly. "No child in this family will be spoken to like that, not while I'm still breathing." Charles didn't reply. He just looked away. William, on the other hand, remained silent. After that meeting between the three senior royals, there were no more discussions, no follow-ups, no second opinions. They simply agreed. The picnic was over. It ended without announcements. Quietly. Tents were cleared. Tables were folded. Staff were discreetly instructed to begin packing. The mood had changed, and no one asked why. No one needed to. Everyone in that circle understood when something unspoken had passed through the air. That afternoon had begun with laughter, cocoa, and card games. It ended in silence. But that was not all. When the family returned to the castle later that evening, it was not the same house they had left that morning. The rooms were quiet. Even the children moved with more caution than usual. Charlotte went straight to her mother's side, holding Kate's hand as they walked in. William watched them from behind. Every step he took felt heavier. Once the children were upstairs, settled in pajamas and tucked under warm covers, William stayed downstairs, alone, in the sitting room. Kate remained nearby, silent, watching him pace. He was not angry in the way people thought he would be. He did not shout or slam things. His anger was deeper than that. It was simply cold and reserved. "I'm done pretending," he finally said. "I'm done covering for her." Kate did not ask who he was talking about. She knew. A few minutes later, William called for George, Charlotte, and Louis to come back down. Just for a moment. The three children appeared in the doorway, a little confused. They had already changed for bed. William sat them down on the couch. He did not kneel to talk to them like he did before. He just spoke. "I want you to always be kind, always be respectful," he said. "But if anyone treats you like you don't matter, you don't stay silent, not even in this family." The room was quiet. George looked at Charlotte. Charlotte looked at the floor. William's voice stayed even. "From now on, you don't have to call Camilla grandmother. I want you to be respectful. But she's not your grandmother." He paused. "Your grandmother was Diana. That's the only name you need to know." Charlotte's eyes lifted slightly. George nodded slowly. William leaned in. "Don't let anyone, even someone older, tell you that you are small or unimportant. You tell me. Always." The children were quiet. Then Charlotte asked, "Is she in trouble?" William did not answer right away. "She's not, but she knows what she did, and she will take responsibility for her actions." After the children went back upstairs, William walked the halls alone for a while, until he found Anne by the window at the far end of the east wing. She hadn't gone to bed either. She was waiting. She did not speak when he arrived. She just turned slightly, expectant. William got right to it. "She thinks she's untouchable." Anne gave a dry nod. "Most people who marry into royalty do, until someone reminds them they're not." William kept his eyes out the window. "She told Charlotte she'll be married off like she's nothing, like a bargaining chip. And she thinks wearing that crown means she can say that." He paused. "Let her wait. The day I take the throne, I'll remind her what it really means to be married into a different family." Anne looked at him. She was not surprised at his words. Then he continued, "That crown she leans on? I'll take it off her head myself if I have to," William said, "and I'll make sure it stays off." Anne gave one nod. "She's been warned," she said. "She doesn't get another chance." The two of them stood quietly for a moment more. That was the line. And the next morning, the decision from that meeting began to take effect. No announcement was made, no headlines, but the divide had been drawn in full. In the days that followed, people noticed. She stopped appearing at private family functions. She missed George's casual birthday tea. She wasn't seen at the late autumn walk the family traditionally takes. And while nothing was said, the shift was too obvious to ignore. That's when the rumors began to spread, not about what happened, but why she was suddenly absent. So, Camilla acted. She went to the press to explain herself, or at least to control the story. She did not name anyone, but through quiet sources and carefully chosen words, she started shaping the message. That she was being pushed out, misunderstood, and only trying to help guide the younger ones. She made herself the victim. Soon, soft headlines started to appear on the internet asking if Camilla was frozen out. Others wanted to know the source of the tension, but no one from the royal family said a word. Not William, not Anne, not even Charles. The silence said more than any statement ever could. And outside the palace, the public noticed something was wrong. They did not know the full story, but they knew something had changed. And for those inside the family, they knew exactly what had happened. And that was enough. Because Anne did not just recuse Charlotte, she changed the narrative. What do you think about Princess Anne's bold stand? Was she right to step in, or did she go too far? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the following video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.